Now we're ready to be introduced to feature lines. So in the Home tab, under the Create Design toolbar is the feature line object creation menu. Feature lines in Civil 3D are a way of assigning elevations to your objects. I like to think about alignments being an elevation representation for linear features. Things like roadways, really long sidewalks, tunnels, those linear features are really great for alignments. Feature lines are really good for non-linear features, such as detention ponds, parking lots, building outlines. I think all of those fall under really good uses for feature lines. If we go to the feature line creation drop down and actually hover over it, you can see what a feature line can do. I don't think this is the greatest explanation, but it can draw straight and curved line segments, and you can specify the elevations, including getting elevations from a surface. So you can see this is pretty similar to what alignments can do and what we did with assemblies and corridors in Deliverable 4, but this is just a different tool, and it works a little bit differently. I think this tool is better for nonlinear features. In this video, we're going to use the concrete pad and make that in a feature line. The next video will go over the pond, and the video after that will go over the sidewalk. So looking at the concrete pad and our feature line options, we can create a feature line directly from an object. We're going to use that setting and select the concrete pad and hit enter. And you can see the create feature line UI appears. In here, we have this option of a site. This option was also present, I think, when we made alignments. And sites are a little bit weird in Civil 3D to understand. The way I like to think about sites is a site is pretty much a collection of objects that you have that are sharing elevation data with each other. So if you have a bunch of objects in site 1, for example, and they have all their elevation data together, and they happen to cross each other, then Civil 3D is going to point that out to you, and it's going to try to make sure all the elevations match up. If you had two objects that cross each other and they're on different sites, though, Civil 3D checks those elevations differently, and so it will basically treat them as two independent objects, or two independent groups of objects. The reason this matters a lot is for things like where the sidewalk and the concrete pad meet here, these need to have the same elevation if they're going to be on the same site. If they don't have the same elevation, Civil 3D isn't going to know how to handle that. It will render the surface really, really badly, and any type of analysis we try to do on the surface about grading or water analysis, which we will be doing, it's going to get really confused. So there's power and there's a reason to use different sites. There's also a reason to keep things on the same site. So keeping everything that we're doing here on one site means Civil 3D will check for us if any of our elevations don't match up. So long story short, ignore the sites, just keep it as site 1. I'm going to name this concrete pad feature line. And I am just going to keep the styling the same for now as a basic feature line, but you can see there's a bunch of different options here. I'll keep the layer the same as well. Here is this option of erase existing entities. So if we do that, it's going to delete this polyline object and create the feature line object in its place. I think it's a good idea to uncheck this and keep it open. That way, the feature line objects are pretty hard to style because you have to use these styles. The polylines are way easier because it's easier to assign them to different layers, and it's also really easy to just change their color. So in my opinion, when you're doing your 2D plan views of your site, it's better to show your polylines with different colors, different thicknesses, and then use the feature line as the object that holds that 3D information. There's also another option called assign elevations. We're going to check that and hit OK. And when we do that, you can see it's asking us how we're assigning the elevation. So we can give it a constant elevation or assign it from the surface. I'm going to assign it from the surface. There's also this option of inserting intermediate grade breakpoints. I recommend leaving this unchecked What this will do is create a bunch of extra points for you. And I will show you what that looks like when we do the sidewalk. And I'll also show you why I think you should leave it off. But for now, just leave it off and hit OK. You can see our polyline. There's now this green object above it, and this is a feature line. If I click here, though, you can see that both objects exist. Right? Look at the Properties tab, feature line, polyline. So in the feature line object, when you click it up, you can see your ribbon automatically changes with the new feature line tools that you have available to you. The tools that we're mainly going to be using are Edit Geometry and Edit Elevations. The Edit Geometry are your 2D tools. So this is your plan view tools. You can add extra points. You can take away points. You can add offsets the same way we just did here with the sidewalk. We can do that for feature lines as well. And we will be doing that for the pond in the next video. And the elevation tab is where you can change all of your vertical elevations. So I'm going to open the elevation editor here, and opening that is going to make this new pop-up appear. Just be careful about dragging this and hiding it. Sometimes these like to get attached to ends and really hard to find and reopen, so just be a little bit careful. Here you can see all of my points, elevations, and side length, grades. This really contains all the information you need for elevation data. If I click on a point, you can see it highlights the point. It's pretty faint or just really bright green, so hard to see. But as I select different points, you can see it will go around and select different, it'll highlight it in your drawing as well. So it does give stations to these points automatically, so you definitely can use these for linear features. I just think they work better for nonlinear features. And you can also see it takes the elevation directly from the surface. Each side length is mentioned, and that's great. We know they're 40 and 70 feet respectively. And it also shows the grade from your station to the next station and the station to the station behind it. So these values are linked right here, right? 3.22, negative 3.22. If you change one of them, it will change the other. If I change this to 5, that's now negative 5, right? So we can see how these are linked. And you might also notice that I only have 4 points on my concrete pad, but 5 points showing up here. That's because it duplicates the last point. So you can see 2 plus 20 is here, and 0 plus 0 is also here. It just helps to do that in the list view, because that way, as you're going down, you can check your elevations quickly. But notice that if I change this, for example, to 570, the last point is going to inherit that same value, also a 570. So even though it shows up as 5 points, there's really 4 points here. It's always going to be n minus 1 or n plus 1, whichever way you want to look at it. So from here, you can edit any of these values. You just saw me do that. I can click in here and assign my elevations this way, like that. Other tools you have at your disposal are all located right up here. So you can see that you can add elevation points. Say I want to add an elevation point here. You can click anywhere along your feature line to add points. You can also delete points by doing the same thing. I can delete an elevation point by highlighting a point and then clicking the delete button. I don't want to do that though, but you can. Other options you have are multi-selecting points. So I can, for example, click one point, hold down Control or Shift, and I can select all the points in between. That's another editing option you have. And you can also move all the points up and down by a specified amount. So I can move all my points up by 1 foot, for example. You can see how that's increasing all my points from, it's only increasing the points that I'm selecting. So if I select all my points, it raises them all by a foot. I can also raise and lower it by any arbitrary value, for example. I think this tool right here is one of the most powerful. It's called the Flatten Grade or Elevations tool. If I look at my concrete pad, I can see that the existing ground is around 573, 573.8, 574.6, 574.8. So I'm going to choose a middle of the row number, so 574, and I'm going to select all my points, and I'm going to say flatten it to a constant elevation. And you can see it just takes all of the elevations and assigns them to whatever your 0, 0 is. So I'm going to raise this up to 574. And now you can see all of my elevations are at 574. This is already a 3D object, so I can actually select the feature line and select my surface and go to the model viewer. And you can see here, I have my feature line and it is in fact flat. And I assigned it at a good elevation, I think, because it's under a little bit and over a little. So these, the amount of dirt we have to remove or cut is pretty close to the amount of dirt we'll have to fill. And so that balance is pretty important. It adds a lot of cost and complexity to your project. So that's something we will be looking at in this deliverable. If you've been following along, you should have your concrete pad and it should be at a constant elevation. Yours is likely going to be different than mine, and you don't have to make it a whole number like 574. You can make it 573.55 if you want to. But your concrete pad should be flat, right? Because your building foundation should be flat. If it's not, that is either a really special circumstance or not good. So that's the concrete pad, and in the next video, we will go over the pond.